Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. Ty Hildebrand over here, Dan Rubenstein over there. solidverbal@gmail.com, as always, is our email address. Don't forget you can subscribe at itunes.com/solidverbal or wherever your favorite college football podcasts are sold. Sir, how are you?
Sold? Could we be making money off of this from people?
What?
Is that a thing?
Maybe? I don't know.
Where available. I sound sick, but I'm feeling better. I just have gunk in my head at this point. I'm good. We have a national champion. We had a great, albeit very long national championship game that I think you can probably speak to specifically. And I couldn't be happier that we had a back and forth and we have a national champion whose fan base has not been in this space in quite some time.
Let's jump right in, Dan.
Yeah.
We have breaking news!
Boop, 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 boop.
Your 2016-17 national champion is officially the Clemson Tigers. Clemson wins by a 35-31 score. As you mentioned, a back-and-forth game, an epic showdown, perhaps the best game of the year, maybe the best national championship game that we've seen since that epic USC-Texas game in the Rose Bowl about 10 years ago. What was your take watching this football game, Dan? What were the key points that jumped out to you, other than the fact that this was a great football game between two awesome teams and a fantastic singular performance by Deshaun Watson?
My takeaway is I hope Deshaun Watson has access to a hot tub for like the next week. I hope that he has access to massage therapy and cold tubs and hot tubs and naps and more napping and 16-hour nights of sleep, because he took so much abuse to get and pull Clemson past the finish line for the national championship, and which is also to say the Clemson defense did as well, standing up to Alabama's offense, namely the rushing attack with or without Bo Scarborough. That there was nothing easy, and this is something I talked about in the postgame show I did with our pal Ryan Nanny at the day job at SB Nation, is that we've seen national championships in which there are breakdowns, and certainly there was a breakdown for Clemson's defense on that long O.J. Howard touchdown.
Right.
But for Clemson to win this game, there wasn't a single play that was taking advantage of an Alabama breakdown. They earned every single inch. And that is an incredible feat against what I still think, and what I would still consider to be the best college football thing, which is Alabama's front seven, their rush defense particularly, and the way that they get to a quarterback in the passing game. The fact that Clemson was able to defeat them while they were playing at an extraordinarily high level. We're talking about a senior-laden front seven as well. We're not just talking about pure talent and experience and age and intelligence. That to me is the incredibly impressive thing, that they were able to weather that sort of just extreme success.
Absolutely. Deshaun Watson, I think, cemented his legacy as probably the best player in the history of Clemson football. Clearly one of the best big game players of all time. Dan, that final drive last night was the kind of thing that every kid envisions when you're playing around in the backyard. I didn't even play organized football. But when I was 8, even sometimes in the holidays when I'm like 30, we'll go out in the backyard, we'll pretend we're running that 2-minute drill to try and win something big.
Yep.
The moment never seems too big for Deshaun Watson.
No, absolutely not.
And that's the one thing that comes up time and time again when you see him in these situations. Even if he's in that dream scenario that you plan for, that you hope for when you're a little kid, even when he's getting crushed on every play, as you alluded a few minutes ago, no interceptions last night, 21 carries for 43 big yards, a big rushing touchdown, almost had a second rushing touchdown when he tried to Superman in from the 5-yard line. 36 of 56 passing, 420 through the air, 3 touchdowns through the air. The guy has a quiet confidence to him, and when his team needs him the most, that's when he steps up. It's what we talked about in all of the preview shows we had done leading up to the national championship. This game was going to be a function of what Deshaun Watson could do on his own. Now, he had plenty of help, and we'll talk about what his receiving core did and how it rose to the occasion.
Sure.
But Deshaun Watson, I thought the best singular entity in this game. We knew it going in. If he had this kind of game, Clemson clearly had a shot to win. He pulled it off. They pulled it off. And now they're the national champs.
Throwing the ball 56 times, no less. If that is a number that you're hearing against Alabama, that's generally a bad thing because it indicates the rush is not there. And the rush was 100% not there for Clemson by Deshaun Watson, by Wayne Gallman, by whoever. So Clemson loses the rushing battle in a big way. I think they're outgained on the ground 221-91. And it was like 6.5 yards per carry to 2 point whatever yards per carry. Clemson could not move the ball on the ground at all. And they lose the turnover battle.
Yeah.
And Clemson moves to something like 15-1 or something when they have 2 turnovers or more. They're just so good at overcoming. And I think it's pretty clearly a reflection of Dabo Swinney and the coaching staff that Clemson just sort of has singular focus and has unwavering confidence in their ability, even with setbacks like turnovers. But for Alabama, the story was clearly offensive struggles, not willing to really open the playbook up with Jalen Hurts, throw the ball downfield a ton.
Yeah.
They had a little bit of success. We had that broken play, that not broken play, but the great sort of screen fake, and then OJ Howard running unimpeded down the sideline. But beyond that, it was a one-dimensional attack in that it was like a 12-yard field that Alabama was playing with on offense. And once Bo Scarborough went down, and yes, huge factor, but he's not their only running back, and he's not their only running back that can churn out chunks of yardage. It was a different story for Alabama's offense, and I would have liked to see that. I would have liked to see them get maybe more creative with their rushing attack. Spread the ball out a little more, look for like some more tossy, ready, optiony things that they could almost play action off of, but adjusting on the fly to losing Bo Scarborough probably is much more easy in theory than it is in execution, especially with a first game offensive coordinator in Steve Sarkisian. So that to me was the story, Alabama's inability to adjust to a great defensive performance from Clemson and having a what seemed like a very small playbook for Jalen Hurts downfield.
I would agree. I think the final stanza now of Alabama's season is that even with the best defense in college football, you need more balance on offense to win a championship. In their 2 biggest games of this season, Dan, Washington and Clemson, Jalen Hurts had his 2 worst games in terms of yards per attempt. In the Washington game, he was a shade under 4.1 yards per attempt.
Yeah.
In this game against Clemson, a shade over 4.2 yards per attempt.
Yes.
So to your point, not very creative, not very wide open. There are a bunch of viable reasons why those numbers are lower, by the way, and it's not all on Jalen Hurts. Part of that is absolutely going up against 2 great pass defenses. That definitely plays a factor.
Sure.
But part of that could also be the game plan being too conservative or run heavy, could have something to do with a new offensive coordinator. Part of that could also be Jalen Hurts needing to mature as a passer. He's got much more time at Alabama to do that, and I suspect that he will. I don't think any of it reflects poorly on Alabama.
No.
And certainly they're not going to get sympathy from the college football world because they lost this game or didn't look as pyrotechnic on offense. But I think it's an important footnote as they now try to build this thing in 2017. If you're a Bama fan, if you're a college football fan, that's what you watch for. You already know that Alabama can run the football both with Hurts or whoever is in the backfield. The second missing piece now is going to be passing, because Lord knows they've got plenty of toys out wide. It's not just OJ Howard. Calvin Ridley had 5 catches for 36 yards. Plenty of guys all around the field who can catch the ball, can make plays in open space. They just weren't able to put those guys in a position to really make those plays.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson was just sitting on all the short stuff for daring Jalen Hurts to throw the ball downfield and make bigger throws than perhaps he was able to against this defense or allowed to against this defense. And it should also totally be noted, with all due fairness and respect to Jalen Hurts, the Alabama offense, if going into this game you said, okay, Well, Alabama has the Alabama defense. We agree. Alabama has that thing on one side of the ball, that just monstrous entity. Should 31 points be enough to beat Clemson? Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, with what Clemson has done this year with turning the ball over in unfortunate spots, playing a little sloppier, not being able to generate the rush, especially 31 points with Clemson not able to run the ball. That should be enough.
Yeah.
And that, I think, it much more speaks to Clemson's ability and Deshaun Watson's ability to come through in the fourth quarter, which, by the way, should also be noted. Our pal Ryan Nanny looked this up. How many points did Alabama give up in the fourth quarter since the Arkansas game, October 8th? In the fourth quarter, so we're talking about 8 straight games, I believe, since October 8th.
Yeah.
Alabama, before giving up 21 to Clemson in the fourth quarter last night, combined in those 120 minutes to give up 0 fourth quarter points.
Wow.
So 31 points, and knowing that your fourth quarter defense has been exceptional, all things considered, and Jalen Hurts had obviously an excellent run on the ground for a touchdown late, but what came back to haunt Alabama was, and this was sort of an all season long thing that didn't seem to matter, but third downs, which are, just as important in and of itself, that it is, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, that it's a product of first and second down, as well as being a big spot on offense during drives. Alabama was 2 of 15 on third downs. And Jalen Hurts this season, when you put him in an obvious passing downs, like 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 plus, he was not very good. And we hammered on this in the pre-show. If they can force those situations, if they can force no-brainer passing downs where they know they can pressure him, they can blitz and sit on short stuff, that Jalen Hurts is going to struggle. And the fact that they still scored 31 points is sort of a testament to weathering some obvious deficiencies.
I saw it written somewhere, and forgive me for not citing properly. It might have been Spencer.
Not you.
Yeah, definitely not me. The gist of this was that Alabama saw a lot of meaningful fourth quarter plays in this game from Clemson.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Defensively, that's not something they're accustomed to seeing. By the time they get to the fourth quarter, in a lot of the games that they play, the plays themselves don't mean a whole lot. In this game, obviously, it was a fight to the finish. And the implication was that because Clemson tried to spread out and run to the perimeter as much as they did early on in the game, perhaps they wore out Alabama's defensive front. And the meaningful plays later on in the game, Clemson had worn them down by that point.
I'm trying to see if Alabama had entered a fourth quarter not up by double digits. I know the Ole Miss game was a back and forth.
Right.
It looks like, God, I'm looking at Alabama, Arkansas. That did not appear to be the case. Alabama LSU was 10 points, obviously, in the end, and all those points were scored in the fourth quarter, so it was scoreless going into it. So that was probably the only real example of Alabama's defense giving full attention, knowing that a game was in the balance, at least recently. So you're right. And Alabama's defense is built to shut down teams for 4 full quarters. And I don't think it's a full excuse that Alabama's defense finally had to play meaningful fourth quarter minutes. But man, Deshaun Watson, Hunter Renfrow, the ability to spread the ball around, Mike Williams making enormous catches, a presence, both he, Mike Williams, and Deion Kane in this game, not in this game last year, just enormous. Just in a game where, once again, nothing was easy. There was nothing routine. There was no play, it seemed, that like Mike Williams, had like a slant that sort of froze a corner or something like that and took it 17 yards. Everything was by 3.5 inches, something like that. So an unbelievable performance from Clemson. Everything sort of came together by just a hair, and that's crazy.
I have a very important question here.
Yeah.
Did you see the final play?
The onside kick?
No. The final touchdown.
Oh, the final touchdown. Yeah, of course.
Did you have any problem with that rub play?
Okay, so this is something that obviously you are going to feel a particular passion point about as a Notre Dame fan.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
I think it was fine. I think the officials were calling the game very loosely.
Yeah, not the only pick play touchdown in this game either.
Not the only rub touchdown, sure.
Yeah.
I am fine with it. I thought Bud Elliott did a really good job explaining why it was an offensive pass interference. The defender initiated contact. The receiver was doing his best to at least sell running a passing route. It wasn't as if he went out there and overtly tried to block the defender. So I'm okay with those plays. I'm sure there are going to be Alabama fans who feel differently.
Right.
That is the main primary difference between what we saw last night on two separate occasions, mind you, versus what we saw in the Notre Dame game like 2 years ago. That was clearly a different story.
I don't have a problem with it if receivers are taught to play within the rules of how officials see those plays. So the defenders initiating contact and sort of looking to the quarterback for the ball, putting your hands out. So sort of conceivably running a route. Clemson's players, to my eyes, ran those routes plausibly enough that it was sort of on Alabama. And, there are teams that succeed against those kinds of routes that are able to sort of match up and switch and do what is necessary. I believe, did the Super Bowl end on one of those with Seattle and New England a couple years ago? I believe
so, yeah, I believe it did.
So you can stop those, but good for Clemson for, I think, running that play to the satisfaction of the letter of the law.
On that note, let's go to our first corporate sponsor this evening, Dan. Did you know that for decades, one big razor company has relentlessly increased prices and reaped immense profits at the expense of their customers?
Yeah.
This is not a good thing.
No.
So Jeff and Andy, two ordinary guys, they were fed up with getting ripped off. They decided to start Harry's to fix shaving because they knew that the only way to ensure quality was to buy your own factory. Talk about taking matters into your own hands. They did so. They bought a factory. They're taking less profit, selling directly to you over the internet. Harry's offers blades at half the price. Just $2 a blade compared to like $4 or whatever you'll pay at the drugstore. I actually got to get more now. I haven't shaved since before our trip down to Tampa. So I'm looking a little grizzled right now and probably need to get on that before the solid wife gets home. Otherwise, she might divorce me. Harry's razors include everything you need for a close, comfortable shave. They've got a weighted ergonomic handle, 5 precision-engineered blades with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade, rich lathering shave gel, and the hidden gem is the travel blade cover.
I, at first, was uncomfortable with you saying rich lathering, and now I am fully on board. I've come full circle.
Here is the exclusive offer for Solid Verbal listeners. Harry's is so confident, Dan, in the quality of their blades, they want you to try their shave for free. For free.
I think that's a great deal.
All you got to do is cover shipping when you sign up. Plus, listen to this. As a special offer to fans of the Verbal, if you go to harrys.com, enter the offer code SOLID at checkout, you will get their post-shave balm also free. Again, all you got to do is cover the shipping. harrys.com, your code is SOLID. SOLID.
Simple as that.
All right, so on that awkward note where we left off, what were some other notes that you had while watching this game? Because it's not all about the game. When you get to this point in the college football season, a lot of neat stuff going on around the game. I thought the most notable of which was the way that ESPN covered it. So obviously on ESPN, you've got Fowler and Herbstreit who do a bang-up job.
Rinaldi Ponder on the sideline,
Rinaldi Ponder on the sideline, sure. You also had the ESPN Homer feed on ESPN2, which featured Joe Tess and Barrett Jones.
Whoa. Adam Amin?
That's where I'm going with it. I was going to say on the Clemson side.
Oh, okay.
Our new best pal, Adam Amin.
Yep.
Sidled up with Taj Boyd. So they had the ESPN Homer feed. And then on ESPN News, I want to say it was the ESPN Film Room, which featured a bunch of coaches. Did you have a chance to check out any of those other broadcasts?
I did. I watched a little bit of the coaches. The problem was our office, I guess we don't get ESPN News in the SB Nation office.
Really?
We don't pay for the full package that includes ESPN News.
Wow.
So
okay.
I put it on Watch ESPN on my computer and watched a little bit of that, but it was a good 30, 40 seconds behind. So that made it a little bit more difficult to sort of pay attention to both because I did want to see what was happening live on TV. But Dino Babers was great.
Yeah.
Matt Rule was really, really good.
Matt Rule, I thought Matt Rule and Dino Babers stole the show.
Yes, I thought those were the two best, and they got snacks in there, which is a big win.
Kalani Sitake did not talk.
No, he did not. I think Mark Helfrich was supposed to be in that room. I was very curious, but he ended up not being there.
Kalani Sitake did not talk, and I saw that somebody on Twitter noted that the only real notable action from Kalani Sitake is when they brought the snacks out, he was the first to jump all over that.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, the coach's feed was sort of difficult to digest. There wasn't a whole lot of organization to who was saying something and when they were saying it. So unless you're really in the weeds into the X's and O's and know the keywords to listen for, it was difficult to figure out and discern what was actually being said. A lot of guys just yelling stuff and, oh, look at that, cover 2. Here comes the safety. There wasn't much organization around the actual commentary, but Matt Rule and Dino Babers, I thought, brought a little personality to that side of the broadcast, which was a lot of fun to watch. I enjoyed it to the extent that I could understand what was going on.
I might cut that to 3 or 4 coaches next time.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the big interesting parts of that feed was because I don't think they really went to commercials all that much. So commercials at halftime to sort of talk big picture about what teams are trying to do. I thought it's a really interesting concept. I think they're still honing it. And then on another feed, they had Bill Walton dressed as a 7-foot Uncle Sam talking about pot and all sorts of and aliens and all sorts of fun things. So this is totally true. So if you haven't, go back and find some Vines or videos or whatever, because it was wonderful. Just the Bill Walton part. I mean, I think it was a lot of people talking over each other otherwise, and I think Paul Feinbaum did something.
Okay.
I have no idea. But I was mainly just watching the game. After the fact, I'll go and scan through the coach's feed to see if they were talking about anything interesting, but that's about it.
There was a cool bit where Mike McIntyre clearly went to the men's room and they all ganged up on him, joking that he was going to talk to his financial advisor because he just signed a $30 million extension.
It's true. No, he's in Boulder for a bit now. Good for him.
So that was fun. And then, of course, the Homer feed I thought was outstanding.
Good.
And I'm not just saying it because Adam Amin is one of our favorite commentators, but he and Joe Test did a great job painting the picture of the game from the sidelines, talked about the experience of being there, really tried to cover the emotion of both sidelines. That was a lot of fun to watch. Again, it's a different way to look at the broadcast, and I saw Adam even mention on his Twitter feed, might not be everyone's cup of tea, but certainly a cool, different perspective that gave you a new way to watch the game.
The game lasted a long time too, Ty.
Yeah.
You have a personal...
I am aware of this.
So what was your game watching situation? I watched from work because we were doing a pre and post show, Wake Up College Football on YouTube. So that was my general game watching situation, but this game lasted right about 4 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Which I was timing it. I was paying close attention because I wanted to see if it would equal or surpass Game 7 of Cubs Indians went 4:28, and that was 10 innings with the 17-minute weather delay.
With the weather delay, yeah.
Right. How'd you do?
Not well.
What does that mean?
I didn't do well. Well, we were down in Tampa, and our plan was this. Our plan was to go early on Friday to get set up and do our interviews and finish up our preview show, which I hope everybody liked. We got good reviews on it so far. So,
right.
And actually, if you go back and listen after the fact, there weren't any glaring mistakes in anything that we said. I thought the preview did a pretty good job painting what was to be expected in the game, and it, in the end, kind of turned out the way we thought it could.
Fearless prediction from Dan Rubenstein.
That's right.
Called the quarterback
Altar of Dan.
Called third downs. Called a close Clemson win. Continue.
Altar of Dan. But the plan was to go in early on Friday, which we did. Recorded all Friday, all Saturday, most of Sunday. And then you and I both had late flights out of Tampa to get back in time to our respective homes to watch the games from the comfort of our own living room or the office or wherever.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of traveling. We were both kind of tired. I went to work yesterday, the mysterious day job, worked a full day, came home, sidled up next to my television, had a Voodoo Ranger IPA from New Belgium, which was delicious, a great way to close out the college football season. Sat Indian style on my floor for the first half of the game, and then decided I was feeling a little dangerous and a little tired, if I'm being honest. Decided, why don't I prop up my feet? I sit on the couch instead of hunching over and bending my knees like I'm a praying mantis. Why don't I lay on the couch, prop up my feet, watch the second half? The next thing I knew, it was about 1:15 in the morning.
A tradition unlike any other.
About 1:15 in the morning, my contacts are dried up in my eyes. I'm trying to look through these cloudy lenses.
Yeah.
And figure out exactly what transpired, only to discover that I missed most of the second half and that Clemson won the game.
So this morning you went back and watched everything with clear eyes, literal clear eyes.
Clear eyes and a full heart, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Went back this morning, watched it, got the full take. So I guess I didn't really miss any of the action. I just missed it in real time.
Fret not, Alabama and Clemson people, possibly offended that Ty fell asleep during your huge national exciting championship. He did that for his own team as well. He fell asleep when his own team was in the national championship. This is much more an indictment on Ty's feelings about consciousness than it is about college football. I love it.
I'm sure this is a huge hit on my credibility.
Every show we do is a huge hit on our credibility. It's fine.
But we're nothing if not honest on this show. And
that's true.
I zonked out. I saw about 5 minutes of the third quarter, and then I was out. I went back. I watched probably with greater attentiveness this morning and took my notes, and now here we are. But
the end of the game, God, probably like 12:15 a.m. Eastern time. Not only was I tired, I realized that I would be tired if I were watching this on the West Coast. It had reached that point. So yes, we are old and disappointing, and that happens. What are you going to do? But no, I think there has to be, moving forward, just for the sport itself, and this isn't even a national championship thing, which also has a longer halftime, but like an early October CBS game is lasting like 4 hours and 20 minutes. I'm not going to put on a hat of like TV executive, and I very much am not that. But I think the sweet spot needs to be no games lasting longer than like 3.5 hours. That probably, just in terms of holding interest and growing the sport and being a viable TV product moving forward with sort of increased competition all the time, like maybe only stop the clock when somebody goes out of bounds in the last 2 or 3 minutes. Like there's some antiquated clock rules that I think need to be revisited. The first down clock stoppage maybe needs to be revisited. There's a lot that says, okay, is this really necessary? Do we really need to like go to commercial after every punt? Do we really need to? I think the way college football is broadcast and governed from a rules perspective needs to be overhauled a bit.
You know what they need to do?
What?
They need to do whatever the hell they did in that Seahawks-Lions game.
Well, it's 12-minute halves. Yeah. And well, especially since college football, perhaps more than pro, and I do not have the data to point this out because I do not watch a lot of pro football. They run the ball so infrequently in college in some of these big games, just because these, spread offenses, even like de facto runs, like little screens that are sort of, they might as well be like slight pitches. When they're incomplete, when they're just sort of running out of bounds because everybody's stretching it wide, it just lengthens it so much. And so I don't know if the game is all that different on the pro level, but the rules are such, especially with first down clock stoppage, that you need, let's speed this up. Let's get to 3.5 instead of 3:45, 4:15.
Well, we watched that playoff game in the hotel room on Saturday night.
Yeah.
And you and I both looked over at each other like, did we just step into a time warp?
It was great.
Halftime was over in what felt like 3 minutes. The game was over in what felt like 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you speed the game up, but I should not have fallen asleep. Mea culpa on that front, but I did have a chance to go back and watch it, and we're nothing if not honest here on the program. The other thing I did want to mention, which needs to be mentioned because it was awesome and because the tweets on it were awesome, the referee in this game had giant bear arms, Dan.
Yes, he did.
Giant
Yes,
bare
he
arms.
did.
And Chris Fowler, all due credit to Chris Fowler for not only pointing it out a couple times as it needed to be, but also referencing the medium referee jersey that he was wearing.
It was tight. It was tight. Yeah, I always like a good, strong referee. Makes me feel like he has command, even if he doesn't, of the proceedings.
So now this is officially the end of the 2016-17 college football season.
Yeah.
But Lord knows there are plenty of other sporting events out there. What else
this is
going
true.
on in and around the sports world? I have SeatGeek on my phone.
Same.
It is the easiest way to buy tickets. You can be anywhere. Just takes a few taps. You can instantly find what you're looking for, whether it's for this weekend or any game in NBA, NHL, NFL, concerts, other kinds of performances. With SeatGeek, they give you the best deal on every ticket because they price compare everything. So they search all the ticket sites. You know, tickets can vary depending on where you shop. SeatGeek's going to find everything at the lowest available price. They want to help you get the most bang for your buck, which is why they grade every seat based on value. So you can immediately look and say, oh, that ticket there is underpriced. This is the best deal. Why don't I buy that? It fits my budget. Every ticket you buy on SeatGeek is backed by a 100% guarantee, which means that you can shop for everything on SeatGeek with full confidence. Best of all, right now, Dan, this has been a thing for a while. If you've been listening, you know that you can get a $20 rebate off your first SeatGeek purchase. All you need to do in order to get that is download the SeatGeek app. Once you have it, click on settings, click on add a promo code, and enter our promo code, which is SOLID, SOLID. After you do all that, after you make your first purchase, they're going to send you $20.
Done.
Just like that. So download the SeatGeek app today, enter the promo code SOLID, make a purchase, you get $20 back. So there you have it, Dan. Clemson again wins 35-31. A great way to close out the college football season. Clemson scores the go-ahead game-winning touchdown, a short pass to Hunter Renfrow with 1 second remaining on the clock. Any parting shots here on the season that was, Dan?
I think it was a good season, not a great season. Great if you're a Clemson fan. Great if perhaps you're a USC fan. You know, teams that sort of turned on later on in the season, improved. I think that's the big thing. If your team got better and improved over the course of the season, even if they end up 9-3, 8-4, 7-5, whatever, if there's optimism, that's the big win. Not a ton of high-level quarterback play, which usually helps to define a really great season. Quarterback play all over the country, but that's just my own personal preference in college football. I know a lot of people love big defenses everywhere, or you know, power running games everywhere. I like it when there are many quarterbacks in control, and it didn't seem like that was the case this year. And we had a couple of big injuries. You know, Josh Rosen was out pretty early on, and a lot of people I think expected a lot from him in terms of development as a big national quarterback moving forward. But all things considered, it was weird. It was funny. It was impressive. It was unexpected. And we somehow have Dabo Swinney face down on the grass crying to end the year. So it can't be all that bad. So I enjoyed the season. I thought we had a great year just because I'm entertained by you endlessly. And this is also to say, we're not stopping. We go all off season long. We already have shows banked that we did in Tampa and before that. So there's a ton coming out. We will revert to going once a week instead of twice a week. But this is when things get particularly weird and fun. And honestly, Ty, this is when we can get really nerdy.
Yeah.
Having stat guys on, having scheme guys on, all sorts of X's and O's guys. We're going to have coaches on over the course of the spring, particularly new guys. We love having the new guys on that just accepted new jobs all across college football. So this is when we really like to produce. We have a little bit more time to breathe and come up with concepts for shows. You remember the Verbies last year. You remember all sorts of fun games and fantasy drafts. So this is when it becomes more of a show than churning out podcasts, which I really like.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought it was a good season, not a great season in terms of a football product. Still better than the NFL, obviously. Because obviously. But very curious to see now moving forward how some of the risers and fallers rebound or accelerate in 2017. Both of our teams went 4-8.
Yes, they did. Yours more notably, yes.
Mine more notably, sure, but it's kind of tough to overcome that black eye. If they do, it's a huge story in 2017. If they don't, it might be an even bigger story.
Yeah.
So I thought a lot of what happened in 2016, just on a personal college football fan level, is setting us up for what's to come in 2017.
Yes.
Oregon went out and hired a new coach. What happens there? We'll see. And then on the flip side of that, you got teams like USC and Penn State, both of which came on like a freight train second half of the season and clearly are going to have a ton of momentum as they enter this coming football season. That to me is the takeaway. Outside of this great finish and a couple great bowl games to close out the season, the risers and the fallers, and now what happens as we enter the 2017 season, that to me is what I'm going to follow closely. With all that being said, I am excited to see what we're able to come up with over the next couple months. Because as you said, it's not all about churning out podcasts and game reviews and previews and whatnot. We actually have a chance to take a deep breath, look to see what people care about, and focus in a little bit more intently on it.
The final AP poll came out, Ty.
Yes.
Speaking of the offseason moving forward, who is obviously Clemson won, Alabama 2. Who's the number 3 team in the country to finish the year?
I heard it was USC, and I do have a sound. Yeah. The hype train is going to be in full working order by the time we get to like July.
Clemson, Alabama, USC, Washington, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Penn State, Florida State, Wisconsin, Michigan are your top 10. So by my count, we have 2 ACC teams finishing in the top 10. We have 4 Big Ten teams finishing in the top 10. A very top-heavy league, though, still. But there is the top, and it's well-deserved. All of those teams, with the exception of Michigan, I think finished pretty strong. And I guess Ohio State.
Sure.
They are, on a 4-quarter
They qualified for the playoff.
But they did qualify for the playoff. Oklahoma as a top 5 team. I may have had them a little higher, but you know what? That's fine. And they go into next season with Baker Mayfield and in a pretty strong sense of momentum. Wisconsin as a top 10 team, given their schedule, is incredible. Florida State, given the injuries all over the field and how they finished the season, that's a pretty big victory for the Seminoles. And it sets up a pretty wide open, because after that, like number 8, so we're pretty confident in Ohio State and Oklahoma and Penn State, Washington, USC having what should be very good 2017s. After number 8, so like before Wisconsin, Michigan, Oklahoma State, Stanford, nobody knows.
No.
This is not a preseason top 25. This is a final top 25, but it is so wide open. Big fan.
All right. Well, do stay tuned here to the Solid Verbal.
Yes.
We will clearly be talking much, much more about this as we progress now into 2017. As Dan mentioned, we're going to go to once a week starting now. So our next podcast will be about a week from today. We're going to get back in the habit of publishing every Wednesday. And the first show that you will hear after this one will actually be a live recording of the live show we are doing this weekend, Saturday evening in New York City at Hill Country Chicken. Tickets are completely sold out. We do have some folks who I've added to a waiting list in case other people report that they're unable to attend. But this is sort of our first crack at it, and we're excited about it. We'll put that show out into the wild next Wednesday so you can listen along, and then maybe if it's something you're into, buy tickets to come to the next one, because if it goes well, we will be doing a next one. So that's the plan. In addition to that live show, we've got all sorts of goodness coming your way over the course of the next couple months during the off season. Going to talk very closely about recruiting. Don't forget, National Signing Day comes up first week of February. Recruiting is
3 weeks from tomorrow, Ty.
Yeah. Recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. We will cover it as we always do here on the podcast. We've also got spring games that come up towards the end of March and all throughout April. And along the way, we'll talk to a bunch of new coaches. We'll deep dive some of the topics that college football fans care deeply about.
Yep.
And of course, we'll bring our normal amount of weirdness to the college football ether.
I would hope so.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
That is all I have, Dan.
That's everything I've got. We have a long off season to talk about anything that we perhaps forgot on this show.
Congratulations to the Clemson Tigers. Congratulations to Alabama as well on a hard-fought game and 2 great seasons. And above all, Dan.
Yeah.
Congratulations to fans of all teams now, because we're all undefeated once more. For that guy over there, Dan Rubenstein. For myself, Ty Hildenbrand, thanks again for tuning in. Catch you all next week. Stay solid.
Peace.